Open the public portion of the meeting today, May 10th, 2023. The time is now 8:06. Let's start with a flag salute. Ms. Crabsteen, can I have a roll call?
Mr. Cathcart,
I'm here.
Mr. Cooney,
Here.
Mrs. Kraft. Here. Mr. Phytros,
Here.
Mr. Gomes,
Here.
Mrs. McNeil. Here. Mrs. Rodriguez. Here. Ms. Velez. Here, okay. Mrs. Orth. Here. And President Martinez.
Here.
Also present, David Disler, Board Attorney, Mr. Tom Egan, Fiscal Monitor, Dr. Angela Benger, Superintendent of Schools, and Carrie Grabstein, School Business Administrator.
Can you please read the Open Public Meetings Act?
Okay, this is the Open Public Meetings Act statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Ridgefield Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Bergen Record, Star Ledger, Municipal Building, Board of Education offices, and district website. Public participation instructions. Public participation will be conducted both in person and virtually through Zoom. All public will be muted throughout the meeting. Public participation comments are limited to 5 minutes. The public will be able to both speak and be seen by the board when participating virtually or telephonically via Zoom. Individuals participating virtually that wish to make comments during public participation will need to raise their hand by clicking the blue hand icon at the bottom of their Zoom window. Individuals participating by telephone that wish to make comments during public participation will need to hit *9 on their telephone to raise their hand. The business administrator, board secretary, will then unmute individuals one at a time to speak in the order that their hand was raised.
Thank you. Before we go on to move the minutes, I just want to apologize to the public for us being tardy. We've been pretty good this year, but I assure you that we were not lollygagging in the back there. We were actually doing the people's work. I'd like to open the meeting. Oh, we did. I'm going to need a motion to open the public part of the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Can I please have someone move the minutes for the February 15th, 2023?
I so move February 15th, 2023 minutes.
Second.
Are there any questions on the minutes from February 15th, 2023? Seeing none, Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Orth, and President Martinez.
Yes. Correspondence, we received a letter from Mrs. and Mr. Santiago regarding the ongoing problems that we've had the ongoing problems that we've had with our fields and concern over the soccer team in particular. I assure you that the faculty and programs and the administration is working diligently to come to some resolution to that. I continue to assert that even though the fields are owned by the town, it is our responsibility to put our kids on safe fields. So we are working on that. It's on our radar. We also received a letter from Ms. Schmidt with her concerns about several of the early departures of different employees in the district. We'll move to committee reports, negotiations. Trustee McNeil?
Thank you. The negotiations committee has been working with the RPEA back and forth for quite a bit of time. We are happy to report that we have a memorandum of agreement signed, which is basically the outline of what the final contract will be. We're in final stages of looking at the salary guide and finalizing the wording with the RPEA, and hope to have it to them shortly in advance of their meeting next week.
Thank you. Trustee Cooney, Buildings and Grounds.
First, let me start by saying happy National Nurses Day and happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you for all that you do. We know it's sometimes a thankless job, but we really do appreciate everything you do for our students. Buildings and Grounds, we do not have any updates. We'll be scheduling a meeting shortly, but for the current time, we do not have a date on the ROD grants at this time as well, but we will get that information out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Policy, Trustee Rodriguez.
Nothing to report at this time.
Faculty and Programs, Trustee Kraft.
We are scheduled to meet on Monday, May 15th at 8 p.m.
Finance and Insurance, Trustee Gomes.
The Finance Committee met on May 4th. Present were myself, Dr. Ricardo Martinez, Vice President Orth, Carrie Grabstein, Trustee Dave Cathcart, and Trustee Ian McNeil. I'd like to start with making a public statement. The budget is prepared by the BA, who prepares it with the help of the administration. As trustees, we analyze the budget, ask questions, and discuss it. This is done so that we, or I, as a trustee, can be certain of what is being approved. Because the Finance Committee did not meet to discuss the budget before it was proposed to the entire board, there were several questions and concerns raised by the trustees, which ultimately led to the budget being tabled. Since the last board meeting, Dr. Martinez asked all trustees to submit their questions to me to aggregate and submit to the BA and Superintendent. Dr. Bender and Mrs. Grabstein were able to answer our questions, and we held a Finance Committee to discuss everything. At the conclusion of the Finance Committee meeting, members had a better understanding of what was proposed and a clear understanding on what we're approving. In summary, the Finance Committee had a productive discussion of the proposed budget for the 2023-2024 school year for the Richfield Park School District. Many of our questions submitted to the administration were answered by the BA, and we were easily able to go through the major points of concern. In the end, the trustees were able to lead the meeting with a better understanding of the proposed budget and had a better sense of what was being proposed. Mrs. Grabstein assured the committee that there is no risk of default because we, or they, would never spend more money than our revenue. Some of the topics discussed were tuition numbers in the proposed budget. There's a discussion and a recap of some of the answers to the questions submitted. It was clarified that this was a difficult budget to balance. The budget was conservatively prepared. The public tuition numbers included revenues for special education, which may be subject to change because the state certifies the tuition 2 years after the fact. Special educations, there were questions about the amount shown for special education on the proposed budget, and it was explained that revenue for special education was combined with tuition public numbers. We further discussed why the special education revenues increased so much between 2021-22 and 2022-23. I'm reading too fast.
No, you're good.
And it was explained that this number is subject to revision due to the final state certified rates. Busing, the BA prepared a budget without including revenues from Little Ferry due to the uncertainty of providing busing service to Little Ferry. It is hoped that we can come to an agreement with Little Ferry to provide busing service for their students. Grants, the district is not at risk of losing any significant amount of COVID-related grants. Additionally, we are pursuing potential grants through the ROD grant application, which is tied to a significant transfer from our capital reserves during the 2023-2024 year. The BA made some recommendations to us. Some of the trustees inquired about an HR position, which was not included in the proposed budget. The BA agreed that we do need an HR generalist and feel that we can hire one. Additionally, we need to have an employee handbook for the district, and this person will be able to help create that. Another position that the BA recommended was that we hire a grant writer, but hire someone who was an independent contractor so that it's not someone who's just working and we're paying them with no results. Finally, in concluding, I'd like to thank Mrs. Grabstein for the time and dedication to respond to our numerous questions, even when it was a time that was not convenient for her. Your ongoing advice to the board is something that I will take into consideration and value. You have laid the groundwork for positive improvements, and I hope to see them from you. Thank you and good luck in your new endeavor.
Personnel, trustee Orth.
The Personnel Committee met on May 3rd. Present were Jody Kraft, Brian Cooney, President Martinez, Dr. Bender, and myself. We discussed the recommendation to the superintendent on the current agenda, and the committee reiterated our desire to create a dedicated human resources position.
And superintendent search update, trustee Orth.
So one of the reasons that our board is meeting late tonight is because we were busy meeting with our search committee. We moved into the next phase of the search where we were presented with the slate of candidates. We spent considerable time reviewing those candidates and deciding who we would invite to come in. And we have interviews scheduled all day on Saturday, the day before Mother's Day, so that we can try to get somebody in here as quickly as possible. So we'll be hard at work over the weekend. And in the coming weeks, scheduling interviews so that we can decide on a candidate as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And we've been rushing so that we can get to the superintendent's report. We'll get out of the way. I will get out of your way.
Okay, no, that's fine. Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight to our special evening of our teacher appreciation. But before we begin with our recognition of those, I have a couple of proclamations that I wrote, and I thought tonight would be the best time to present them. And I'm going to start with this one. Whereas the Richfield Park Public Schools teachers and staff who are responsible for providing all students with an opportunity to learn while shaping the minds and hearts of over 2,100 students in order to uphold each student having an equivalent opportunity at life through education and safe and non-threatening classrooms. And whereas teaching assistants provide support by nurturing all students. And whereas school nurses who provide healthcare and share their medical expertise and knowledge in caring for all students and assist and advise parents, teachers, and the superintendent, especially what happened during the global pandemic. And whereas the child study team and school counselors to provide all special needs students, their families, and the district with continuous outreach to all students to assure they are well physically, emotionally, and mentally, while also providing resources for families in need. And whereas office support staff, administrative assistants, administrators, and the entire central office team for continuously supporting and preparing for the needs of students and families in the various office tasks to purchase, assist, and communicate to families in need. And whereas the Richfield Park Public School teachers invest their time above and beyond in preparing lessons, creating safe and non-threatening school cultures that respect inclusivity, supports the social emotional learning and academic success of all our students. And whereas the Richfield Park Schools teachers who are dedicated to building lasting connections with families and our village. And whereas consistently collaborating with colleagues in reflection and honing and sharing their best practices in the art and science in the craft of teaching and learning, including countless hours of professional development. And whereas teachers are responsible for educating our students as they are the future. And by investing in them today, we are ensuring a better world for tomorrow. And whereas bus aides and bus drivers provide transportation that is safe And whereas cafeteria employees provide meals for students, and whereas custodians and maintenance employees provide a safe and clean environment for students to come to and learn. And whereas technology employees who provide student personnel, building information, our infrastructure, and a vast array of software for all to learn in a safe environment physically and in cyberspace. And therefore, be it resolved that Dr. Angela P. Bender, Superintendent of Schools, urges parents, residents of the Village of Ridgefield Park, and the Board of Education to support and celebrate all teachers, including all who, regardless of their position within the district, who serve our children. And be it therefore resolved that this Superintendent of Schools, along with our Board of Education, are committed to the continued support of all teachers and staff of the Ridgefield Park School District. And do hereby proclaim that the week of May 8th through 12th as All District Employees Appreciation Week. And specifically today, Wednesday, May 10th, as Teacher Appreciation Day in Ridgefield Park, and commend its observance to all citizens in our school community and beyond. Adopted this day. Being today is also National School Nurse Day, which celebrates Florence Nightingale. I'm going to ask that the board assist me in reading this. We'll do a round robin. I will start first, and I'll ask Ms. McNeil. Okay. Whereas the Ridgefield Park Public Schools nurses who provide healthcare and share their medical expertise and knowledge in caring for 2,100 plus students and assist and advise parents, teachers, and the superintendent, which was especially during the global pandemic. And
whereas families deserve to feel confident that their children will be cared for regardless of their learning environment. And
whereas all students have the right to have their physical and mental health needs safely met in all settings. And
whereas students today face more complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care. And
Whereas the COVID-19 global pandemic has emphasized the essential role school nurses play in student health and academic success. And
Whereas school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 100 years. And
whereas school nurses address the home and community factors that impact students' health. And
Whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our children. And
whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth by providing access to care when children's cognitive development is at its peak. And
whereas school nurses are members of school-based teams, for example, school health services, 504 IEP, disaster and emergency planning to address the school population. And
whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for children every day. And
I'll read. Therefore, be it resolved that Dr. Angela P. Bender, Superintendent of Schools, recognizes in collaboration with the National Association of School Nurses, celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses everywhere and their efforts of meeting the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of healthcare, and offers gratitude for the Ridgefield Park Public Schools school nurses by helping students stay healthy and ready to learn, not just on this National School Nurse Day, but at every opportunity throughout the year. And be it further resolved that this Superintendent of Schools, along with our Board of Education, are committed to the continued support of all nurses of the Ridgefield Park School District. Now therefore do hereby proclaim Wednesday, May 10th of 2023 as School Nurse Day in the Ridgefield Park School District, and commend its observance to all citizens in our school community and beyond. Adopted this day. Thank you. Next, I'd like to ask Ms. Cavins, would you please start us off with our Teacher of the Year?
I'd like to ask Mrs. Cameron to come up and join me. So good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to recognize some of the outstanding professionals in our school district. For the 22-23 school year, we are very pleased to announce Mrs. Amy Cameron as our Teacher of the Year for the junior senior high school. Mrs. Cameron has been a teacher in our district for 17 years as a member of the science department. Mrs. Cameron teaches biology, anatomy and physiology, and integrated biology courses. In fact, because of her own educational background and degrees, our students are afforded college credit through dual enrollment for her anatomy class. In addition to her teaching responsibilities, she is the 9th grade class advisor, Title III teacher, and co-advisor of the Future Health Professionals Club. It is well known that Mrs. Cameron goes out of her way to seek out meaningful, exciting opportunities for her students to learn, one of which is observing a live kidney transplant through the Liberty Science Center every year. Anyone who has had the honor of having Ms. Cameron as a teacher, colleague, or department member can attest to her dedication to her students that is beyond measure. She is not only an asset to her department, she is an asset to all students, especially appreciated by our special education department and our multilingual learners. She is known to hold students to high expectations, but also goes out of her way to provide the support so they can achieve success. She's a true team player, staying in constant contact with parents, guidance counselors, case managers, supervisors, and administration. I think it's appropriate to take note this evening of Ms. Cameron's colleagues that are present this evening to celebrate this honor. So everybody wave in the back. Ms. Cameron's family is also here this evening. So for all those reasons, it is only fitting that tonight we formally honor Mrs. Amy Cameron as the Junior Senior High School Teacher of the Year. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Board of Education and Dr. Bender for honoring me this evening, to Mrs. Cavins for all those kind words that you had for me, to my administration and my colleagues, my friends, my science department who's here supporting me this evening. I couldn't do what I do every day without them. To my family who's here, my husband who supports me every day, to my kids. They're always teaching me things that I sometimes even use in my classroom. To my supervisor and friend, Alicia Armental, she has been really great to have. She's been a friend for many years. I think she was the first person I met here, and I couldn't do what I do without her. And most importantly, I'm so happy to have all my students. They're what makes me come to work every day and help me do what I do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to announce for Grant School. Unfortunately, Mrs. Rossello could not be here tonight, but it gives me great pride to announce Mrs. Jackie Rossello as the Teacher Nurse of the Year for Grant School. She's known as Nurse Jackie. She joined the Grant School family 5 years ago when she made the transition to becoming a school nurse. Being a school nurse is not an easy job, but Nurse Jackie does it with such kindness and love. During her second year at Grant School, the pandemic started and it took Nurse Jackie's job to another level. She would spend endless hours reaching out to families, no matter the hour of the day or the day of the week, to see how they were feeling or to report a close contact. These interactions cultivated a strong relationship between Nurse Jackie and the Grant School community, who trust her and appreciate her efforts. Our school is fortunate to have a nurse who cares about the students, families, and staff. Nurse Jackie, if you're watching out there, thank you for always being there to help us with every cut, bruise, loose tooth, and much, much more. Congratulations on being Grant School's Teacher of the Year of 2023. Unfortunately, Mrs. Hernandez had a prior obligation and could not be here as well. Next, Lincoln School.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Mrs. Nancy Alkin, if you can come over. It's a pleasure to introduce our Teacher of the Year, Miss Nancy Alkin for Lincoln School. About 14 years ago, I met Mrs. Alkin when I was beginning my career at Lincoln School, and I knew right away how amazing and positive this person is. There's so much I can say about her, but to start off, I thought you should know some history about her. She graduated from Penn State, has been in the district for over 20 years. She was a second grade teacher. She then transitioned into a guidance counselor. She is, in my opinion, the gateway to the school. She does response to intervention. She does guidance lessons and discussion groups. She does counseling and family and crisis resources. And I really want to touch upon that. Today I was walking on Euclid Avenue for some exercise, and I noticed a monument, and the monument was on the Vietnam War, and there were probably about 9 individuals that passed away. And we talk about trauma, people that face trauma, and our guidance counselors will sometimes have to hold that heaviness in their heart and do the weightlifting to some of the trauma that our students face. And I really am thankful for her to be that person to listen to those children and help support them. She's also a testing coordinator, an after-school program coordinator, a 6th grade after-school teacher, a safety patrol advisor, and something really great and wonderful. She came to me and said, I would like to start a TREPS program, which is short for entrepreneurship program. She started it and it was a huge success for our 5th and 6th graders. Recently, they had their market where they, it's like a Shark Tank, where they pitched their ideas. They went through classes with Mrs. Alkin, and they created products or services, and they sold it to the public, and it was a huge success. Even Little Ferry students came over to see it. So I want to say thank you so much for bringing that to Lincoln School, and I believe it would be a great program to bring to the rest of the schools. She also just told me yesterday she had a whole bunch of her 3rd graders who wanted to help. And the 3rd graders thought of, why not helping students in foster care? And they raised over $200. These are 3rd graders, raised over $200. And it's because of Mrs. Alkin here who helped empower them to do that. So $200 will be going to CASA, the court-appointed special advocates who help the neglected in foster care. So she is wonderful. She does an amazing job. Simply put, she loves her job, cares about her students, and is always willing to help. She's a role model for her students who empowers them. But I want to end off with a story. I remember that Mrs. Alkin a few months ago came to me and was sharing to me how she was having difficulty with the student. And I listened to her, and she examined it and reflected and saw it in multiple perspectives. But in the end, she remained positive and calm. And yesterday, I had actually, it was today I had this conversation. She was talking about how she has such a good connection with this student now. And that's what I like about Mrs. Alkin. She never gives up on the students. She remains calm, professional, and positive. And this is why she's Teacher of the Year. So congratulations, Mrs. Alkin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ferraro, Dr. Bender, and the Board of Education. To be honest, I never thought that when I transitioned from being a second grade teacher to a school counselor, I never thought that I would be able to receive a Teacher of the Year award. But it is true. I do spend a lot of my days teaching the students. I teach problem solving, character development, emotion management. So even though I am a school counselor, I do feel like I'm a teacher at heart. For my dear friends and my family, they do know my decision-making, my daily decision-making can be a challenge for me. But going into education and being an educator was never even a doubt in my mind. I remember being a young child, playing in the basement with my dolls and my stuffed animals, setting them up, teaching them lessons about cursive and math, and with my little blackboard. It just boggles my mind that I spent the first 22 years of my life dreaming of becoming an educator. And for the past 22 years plus one, that dream has become a reality, and I live it every day. It has been an absolute pleasure to be able to work for leaders who truly understand the role and importance of a school counselor. Dr. Bender, we spent some crazy years problem solving while I was the counselors were shared among the elementary schools, and I was driving back and forth from Grant to Lincoln, and you were really instrumental in knowing that each elementary school needed to have a guidance counselor, and you made that happen, and I appreciate that every day for being an advocate for that. Dr. Ferraro supports me every day. I do think it helps that he definitely knows my role completely. As he had mentioned, he covered my position when I went on maternity leave, when I had my baby. My baby is in the back right there. He just turned 13. But Dr. Ferraro, you're kind, responsible, dedicated, and the Lincoln School students, family, and staff are so lucky to have you. You've created such a positive atmosphere, and it's a pleasure being in Lincoln School. My lunchtime crew, thank you so much for all the laughter. It really truly makes each day so much more enjoyable. I'd especially like to thank Maxine Lawrence for being the most amazing mentor and friend. Counselors and therapists are recommended to partake in supervision, which is a time frame where you provide support for another counselor and therapist. Well, Maxine and I took that to another level. We spent every morning and afternoon speaking on the phone together while we commuted on Route 80, which you know can be a long time, for 13 years. I'm so grateful to have you in my life, Maxine. I'm also thrilled that my in-laws, parents, husband, and children are here today. I love how you have always shown an interest in all my daily endeavors. Whenever there's an opportunity for Gerson and Fletcher to come to Lincoln School, they jump on that chance. And that's just because Lincoln School is such a warm and welcoming home. Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful recognition.
Mr. Cata, can you just hold off 1 second, please? Okay, now we're ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, if we can please have Jenna Marmo come up to the podium. Start off by saying thank you so much to Dr. Benner and the Board of Education, as well as the community, staff members, Ridgefield Park community members. Thank you so much for being here for such a very special time. Roosevelt School, I say it all the time and I will continue, has a phenomenal staff. That makes choosing a teacher of the year very difficult. The funny thing is with the committee this year, we were actually shocked when we realized that Ms. Marmo was not chosen yet for, during her 15 years of service at Ridgefield Park. Doing some homework, turns out that my two predecessors actually selected her and she denied it twice. That being said, we kept it a secret and chose her anyway. To the point that I even made the announcement about her getting Teacher of the Year on a day that she was absent. So I got to make that announcement a second time. We kind of agreed also that we would keep this short. Ms. Marmo is dedicated, enthusiastic, caring, nurturing, quiet, constantly smiling, and makes the best eye contact. When you speak to her, you know you have her attention, and so do her students. She patiently waits for students to give an example or share a story. They're first graders. And her response alone in her face tells these 6- and 7-year-olds that she's truly listening and she cares about what they have to say. Ms. Marmo completely changed the way she teaches math instruction this year. She continues to grow as an educator with our ever-changing climate and student needs. She even had former students currently at the junior-senior high school come and record one of her math lessons. This video will be shared with certain staff members throughout the district, which demonstrates her risk-taking, further developing of her craft, and impeccable skill set as a teacher. Just this morning, I questioned some of her students while they were lining up, and I said, what makes Miss Marmo such an amazing teacher? Again, these are first graders. She cares about us. She makes class fun. She is very nice. I also got, she's the best teacher because I used to be scared of math, and she showed me this year how to not be scared anymore of math. That's what makes her the best teacher. I also got, if we do something wrong on homework, she makes sure that we understand it better the next day. That's very important. Thank you. Other fun facts. I try to get into every teacher's classroom at least once a day. I do my best. At least 6 times during the course of the year, I hear Miss Marmo talking about broccoli. She loves broccoli. Ms. Marmo has designated days for students, such as Think Outside the Box Thursday. She's also very modest and pointed out that's a first grade thing, not just in my classroom. So the other first grade teacher does it also. And this is a situation where students receive a sheet of paper with either squiggle marks or lines or some type of shape. And the students have to think outside the box and create something with that, drawing the picture, writing about it. They sit in a circle and they all share what it is that they created while thinking outside of the box. That lets the students feel proud about what they can think of and what they come up with on their own. And every student gets to share it. As a principal, I'd like to share that Ms. Marmo is a staff member who has no problem sharing her ideas and concerns. Every leader has many types of employees. some who stay quiet and don't make waves, some who do what they are told. Miss Marmo is not one of those employees. She is independent and the type who will tell the leadership her opinion. More importantly, if it is a problem she sees, she comes with at least one solution and usually more than one. That's important. This also shows her true dedication on many levels. It also helps me become a better principal. Thank you. Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines the word dedicated as working hard at something because it is very important to you. This speaks to Miss Marmo perfectly. She is dedicated to the district, Roosevelt School, the staff, and most importantly, her students. Congratulations, Miss Marmo. Roosevelt School is lucky to have you as a teacher, and we respect and love you very much. Want me to stand up?
Little does Mr. Cata know he's coming to observe me tomorrow and my lessons on broccoli. But good evening, Dr. Bender, Board of Education, and Ridgefield Park community. For over a decade, my mornings have begun with 3 words. 3 words shouted from the children who I've come to love and adore. 3 words that not only remind us how to carry ourselves through the day, but words that have come to define us. Words that follow us home to our families. I constantly say we and us because in my 15 years of teaching in this town, I've been beyond blessed to spend my days with who I now consider my second family. Nothing I do, no acknowledgement I receive is solely mine. I've learned from the best family, worked alongside the brightest and most inspirational, been challenged by the greatest leaders, and Maxine, I've been guided by the brightest light. I am the teacher and person I am because of all of you. Maybe more people need to hear these words. Maybe more people need to start their mornings the way we do, because the teachers in this town exhibit nothing but class. An example of how to put your best foot and face forward, no matter what. It is truly an honor and pleasure to work with all of you. This is Jenna Marmo signing off. Stay classy, Roosevelt.
Before I ask the board to stand up and join me in having our photo op, I just need to ask Mrs. Lawrence, if you would please stand up. Mrs. Lawrence, I know since I've been here in 2006 at Grant School, and I can also attest to the fact that Mrs. Lawrence has inspired many, many staff members. Mrs. Lawrence, you retired in March of 20. It felt like March, right? Yeah, because it was during COVID and we did not get to say a proper farewell to you. So again, I would like to, on behalf of the entire board, wish you well in your retirement, a little late, but better late than never. And honestly, you are missed every day and you have really, truly inspired many, many staff members. Thank you for all you did.
I would just add to that, not just staff members, but students as well. Many, many students were positively affected by Mrs. Lawrence's kind guidance.
If we can join with our Teachers of the Year and our principals.
Please stand by. Sorry for the delay. We are going to continue with our board meeting. We have the state monitor's report.
Good evening, all. It's a wonderful night tonight with hearing all the accolades and the outstanding teachers that are being recognized that are members of the Ridgefield Park school system. I congratulate them all. It was very interesting and enlightening to hear the accolades that were said. So we're moving on. We have enough money to get through the end of the year. We're not going back into deficit. The finance department is good. The records are being kept well. There's some changeovers coming, which will be addressed, and hopefully we can accommodate everybody. The other thing is that I'm very interested in the education of children. And one of the things is, which is really not the role of the state monitor, but for several different reasons I got involved in it, is the early childhood. The last year the district had one class of early childhood being funded. So going into next year, there'll be 4. But it's still not enough to cover all the children. So it's still required to do a lottery to get the kids into it. And my goal is to, by next year or the latest the year after that, to have enough classes and to where there will be no lottery, that everybody, early childhood, will have classes for full day. Anyway, that's my hope. Thank you very much. So ends my report.
We're now going to listen to citizens' comments on agenda. I also want to point out that tonight we'll be approving the budget, and we're providing the public with an extra session for comments specifically on the budget when that item comes up before we vote on it. Trustee Rodriguez, can you read the guidelines?
Sure. For tonight's meeting, there will be 2 public sessions, one on agenda and one off agenda. items. There is a sign-up sheet on the podium. We'll call your name in the order that you signed in. Each member of the public will have 5 minutes to speak during each comment period. Time cannot be transferred to other individuals. The public comment period will be 1 hour for on-agenda items and 1 hour for non-agenda items. The board will now entertain public comments. Please remember to state your name, Richard Park mailing address, and to keep your comments brief to allow sufficient time for other members of the public to speak if they wish. Thank you for your cooperation and support.
Thank you. Mr. Tadros?
Oops. Good evening. Oh, this is loud. For those of you who do not know me, my name is David Tadros. I'm the president of the Richfield Park Education Association. And it's certainly wonderful to stand here witnessing 4 exemplary staff members being recognized for their excellence and accepting their awards, especially during Teacher Appreciation Week. What many of you do not know that are sitting here tonight or watching on Zoom at home, that our members have been working tirelessly for the past few years without a contract. And for those of you not in the education field, that equates to no raise for 2 years. And working in unprecedented times, our staff has continued to go above and beyond for the good of all the students and this community that we respect. This community that has supported our staff during the best of times and certainly during the worst of times. When I became elected as president for the 22-23 school year, I vowed that we would get a contract for the RPA members that truly deserve it. Tonight, I stand here before this community proud to announce that we have settled the contract. Thanks to the very best negotiations team that willingly worked all hours of the day and night, and most importantly, in the interest of all RPA members. I can never thank them enough. I would also like to thank the Richfield Park Board of Education negotiations team, led by trustees McNeil, Velez, and Fitros, for their fair and equitable treatment of the RPEA. You certainly were a formidable negotiations team and represented the community well. Thank you. Many deserve accolades of settling this contract, including our superintendent of schools for recognizing the needs to have a fair contract agreed upon by the Board of Education and the RPEA, and the stability of a 5-year contract will provide for this district moving forward. I would thank everyone involved for coming to the table with an open mind and willingness to resolve this issue. Next week, the union will be voting to ratify this contract and will continue to bring the children of Richfield Park and Little Ferry communities the very best in education. At this time, it seems to be the perfect opportunity to implore everyone to work for the stability of this district so that we as educators can continue to humbly serve for the betterment of our children. In the end, the district must survive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Rafferty? Address, please.
John Raftery, 54 Euclid Avenue, Ridgefield Park. Going over the agenda tonight, I see that the assistant BA is resigning, Ms. Luciano, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so right now we are at no superintendent, no BA, no assistant BA, no director of curriculum. Is the board aware of that, and do they have any response to that as to where we're heading? Simple as that.
I can tell you that the board is very aware of that. We have the same concerns that you do, and the board is working tirelessly to make sure that those positions are filled with people. I can't guarantee that they'll be as highly qualified as some of the people in our front office that we've lost, but we are working very, very hard. Part of the process that you saw today was us taking those first steps to making sure that we have very qualified people in the district.
Thank you.
Ms. DeSantis?
Susan DeSantis, 15 Homestead Place. 1122. I am very happy to see surveillance cameras for the safety of everybody on that bus, from the drivers to the students. It's about time. It's a long time coming and a long fight to get them. Okay, I guess I only have two. Resolution 1311. Again, we're losing a key person in the district. I think this is falling on deaf ears, but it continues to destabilize the district. I told you this was going to happen weeks ago, that this is going to continue based on the instability of not giving Dr. Bender a contract. For the sake of looking independent, when focus groups, the community, everybody, including the union president, has basically said, give the woman a contract and let's go forward and stabilize this district so we can get rid of the monitor. The more destabilized we are, the longer he's going to be here. That's it for on agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Ms. Baloo?
Janet Malul, 163 East Grand. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the staff, even though everybody has left. It really is amazing the job that they have done over the past few years. And that actually goes for a lot of districts. It's not just here, but I think they were working under a lot more restraints than you would typically expect. And to have them all continue to do what they do best is really admirable, because I will be honest, in a lot of districts, they wouldn't have put up with it. So we were very lucky here. As far as the on-agenda items, I'm sad to see that Dana Butler is resigning the position. The Arts Association has worked with her in the past and was looking forward to doing some more projects with her and the students. So it's just like there's another one gone. As was said before, I really have a lot of concerns after reading that now the assistant BA is also resigning. So when you look at it, we are basically dismantling, almost like block by block, our whole central office, all the key players. And I also am wondering about the preschool coordinator. We still don't have anybody in that position. And to me, that's really kind of sad, because we did have a competent person that worked very hard to get those grants. That's not being considered to be brought back into that position for whatever the reason is. But what's coming to mind is, remember the game Jenga, where you pull out, you keep pulling out here and here and here. And in my mind, you pull out the superintendent on top of it. You are really setting this district up for collapse. You can't, in my mind, and this is in any organization, when you take everybody with history of how a department works and you pull them apart and nobody has the history, things start really going downhill. And I'll give you a simple example. Community garden. They were redoing everything, okay? They had brand new people in that had maybe a year in the garden. And I put my name in again, and luckily the decision was made to keep me in. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain to those on the board, here's the reason it's done that way. No, you can't just go out and buy something, because you're not going to get reimbursed, or if you get reimbursed, you're not going to get the tax back. simple things that people don't realize. And that's what I see is going to happen here. And that scares me. And so I just want you to think about what's going on here. And I don't know how many more people are, from the staff or whatever are actually leaving, because I'm not familiar with that piece of it. But just seeing the key players here, you are looking for an awful lot of people at one time. And then the piece also goes to my mind. Why are so many people leaving? And that happened in my district when I retired. Everybody but one person left from the head office, from, central office. And they went through person by person by person for almost 4 years till things leveled out. And you don't want that. You guys sitting here don't need that headache. Okay, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Ms. Baloo. Mr. DeSantis?
Good evening, everyone. It was very nice to see the teacher awards. It's always a good thing to see how lucky we have to have a staff that is so proficient and leaders among that staff. I couldn't agree with Mr. Tadros more. I'm glad it's finally at the point of being settled. They've worked very hard at their positions without a contract for quite a long time, as other people in this district also do. I'm also happy to see the bus surveillance cameras that are a long time coming. I think they're necessary. We live in a world that everybody's on camera all the time, even us now. And this was a long time coming. On the other side, disappointed to see both our dance instructor and Dan Butler and Ms. Nancy Lolicano leaving. It's a reasonable thing to look at that and say, we don't have right now a superintendent come July 1st. We don't have a BA. We don't have a director of curriculum. We don't have an assistant BA. And I may be telling you what you already know, and trust that you have a handle on it, but we don't have a 7th and 8th grade principal. We don't have a director of the preschool. And I have a feeling a lot more people are going to leave. As you struggle as new board members, because it's new to you, absolutely understandable. Everybody who gets hired in now from the outside in all those positions will struggle. Those that are your educators will know that. They're going to learn the ropes. And everybody's going to be new except the state monitor, who is also new. It's getting a little scary. It's getting a little scary. And I would hope that what I hear on the street is people aren't coming to meetings because they think no one's listening. So I hope that isn't true. I still support all of you. And well, I hope you make good decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. DeSantis. I just want to comment on that. Please don't confuse the stoicism on the board here as overconfidence or that we're not listening. We do plenty of freaking out. We are plenty concerned about the state of the district. We're all committed to this district doing well going forward. So we've been through a lot of meetings today, so please don't confuse my stoicism for overconfidence. The best thing about this town is that it doesn't like change, and the worst thing about this town is that it doesn't like change. And we are trying to ride the line between the two and working really hard for that to come out on top. So I appreciate your words as always. You know I'm listening. Okay, if we can move now to oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Two people online, please elevate.
Hello,
Hello, can you give me your name and address?
Christina Ramos, 382 Teaneck Road.
Evening.
Good evening. I have a concern with 310, Ms. Butler leaving. I was wondering, I don't know how this really works and if it can be done at all, but if this resignation somehow can be tabled and not accepted at this time until a conversation is had with Ms. Butler. I don't feel that her resignation is coming of her choice. So I feel that I'm not sure who the person would be to have this conversation with her. And I'm sure that you all have a lot of more possibly things that you would consider more important than our dance teacher at this time. But I consider her to be important because she's been an outlet for many children in our district who are performers, such as my daughter, who loves to dance, who's been in the plays, and this is their outlet. This is their thing. And especially when I feel that this teacher really doesn't want to leave. And I think there should be a conversation had, and maybe if the conversation happens, that would be one less person you will have to look for. Because I definitely don't want to see the dance program go away. I know that you'll have to find a replacement, or I hope that a replacement will be found. But many of the children that have joined the dance club are kids who repeatedly continue to go and have been with Ms. Butler for quite some time. Their most recent performance was when the Wizards were in the high school gym and they performed there. She does great work with them, and I would hate to see her go and the children to lose yet again someone who they're been comfortable with and they've known for some time now. So again, I really hope that maybe that some conversation can be had with Ms. Butler regarding her resignation. Also, there was something that was said earlier about the superintendent search and her interviews being held on a Saturday and how we want to get someone in as quickly as possible. And I know that you probably don't mean it in the way it sounded, but we definitely don't want to get in somebody as quickly as possible. We want to make sure that the search is being conducted thoroughly and that we don't go with the first person that we may think is the right candidate. I think that a few candidates need to be interviewed, and it's a process. So it's not a quick rush process. So I just want to be clear about that. It shouldn't be a rush process. It sounded that way in the comments made earlier. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you. Good night.
Ms. Ramos, if I could just address, because I think it was probably me, I was a little unprepared for the update tonight because we had met earlier this evening at about 5 o'clock to review some 32 candidates who had applied for the position. And so it's not that we're rushing to accept the first candidate, it's that we are holding ourselves accountable to the aggressive timeframe that we set forth. We are not cutting any corners in the process, but we are making certain that that process is handled in an efficient and timely manner.
I'll add to that, one of the HYA representatives used the word compressed. I think having gone through a superintendent search process, we are not going to spend less hours than we did last time or any other time. We're going to spend just as many hours, but on the calendar, it is going to be compressed. So as I've said to several people, I'm gonna need to walk these halls and walk around the town. And I'm not looking to, we're not looking to bring anybody who's not quality here. So we're not rushing it we're rushing it on the calendar. We're not rushing it in the room. But thank you for your comments and observations.
Correct. I mean, one more last comment. I know that there's a timeline that ideally we want to keep, but at the same token, sometimes things can't happen in how we would like it. So if it needs to take extra time, then so be it. And in the meantime, I hope there's a plan B set up for that, because time is fastly approaching. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We have somebody else?
Hello.
Hi, good evening. We can hear you.
Hi, Sharon Ramirez, 205 Overpeck Avenue. I just have a few comments, but one, I really would like to congratulate not just the teachers that were acknowledged tonight, but also all the teachers in our district. I know that they work tirelessly, as I've spoken about the teachers before. I'm sure that choosing a teacher of the year was extremely difficult for all the principals, so I commend you for being able to do that. I'm actually extremely sad that I had many conflicts and I wasn't able to be there tonight because Miss Lawrence, there are people who are put angels on earth, and she is one of them for my family. So I do wish her the very best always. She was a #1 angel on earth for my family. So the Richfield Park in the schools, I'm extremely satisfied with every staff member and everything that they've done for my family. So I want to thank publicly everybody for that. The other question that I have, which was brought up by our state monitor, was about our pre-K program. And he has some vision for it, but we don't have anybody in charge of the program. So I'm really just concerned about the direction of that. I know the people in the town are questioning that, and what is, how is that moving forward with, especially for this September that's coming up now that Dr. Haynes is no longer going to be running that. So that was just my concern, and hopefully that the board will be able to rectify what's happening with that. Thank you for your time. And once again, thank you to all the teachers in the district.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Have anybody else to elevate? Okay. Move on to our agenda items. Trustee Kraft, could you move F and P?
Sure, I make a motion to move FP 901 to 903.
Second.
Are there any questions on FP 9.01 to FP 9.03? Seeing none, Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, you must
Yeah.
abstain on 9.03.
So yes to everything else.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Orth,
Yes.
and President Martinez.
Yes.
Resolutions pass.
Buildings and grounds, we don't have anything. Finance and insurance, Mr. Gomes?
I move FI 1101 to 1124.
I second it.
Are there any questions on resolutions FI 11.01 to 11.24?
Yes, I'll just take advantage right now to say, Carrie, once again, thank you so much for the state in which you're leaving us in. You are leaving a gaping hole in this district. You've been nothing but honorable and ethical and talented and communicative with the board. And, I've accepted that you're going to go, but I'm not happy about it. And I just wish you the best of luck. And I hope that the place that you go to next realizes the gem that they have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez. Okay, so no questions on 11.01 to 11.24. Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart?
Yes, but I'll be an abstention on 1104.
Thank you. Good, okay. Mr. Cooney?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, you have to abstain on 11.09 and 11.24.
Yes to everything else.
Mrs. McNeil?
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Orth?
Yes.
And President Martinez.
Yes.
Resolutions pass.
Trustee Orth, can you move personnel?
I so move 1301 to 1315.
Second.
I have a question about 1310. Is this position going to be riffed? Is this position, is there still going to be dance at the elementary schools? And then, because I mean, I know that there are after-school programs that this individual runs. So are we going to eliminate dance?
I can answer that. No, we're not eliminating dance. We are going to be advertising. It's
Okay, any other questions on personnel? 1301 to 13.15? To wait. Seeing none, Mrs. Orth?
Yes.
Mr. Cooney?
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart?
Yes, but I'll be an abstention on 1307.
Mrs. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phytros, you have to abstain on 13.02, 13.03, and is this SID? What is this? SID. And resolution SID numbers having to do with 7051 and 0799.
That's it? Okay. Yes to everything else.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil?
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez?
Yes to all, but I'm sorry, no to 1310.
And President Martinez.
Yes to all.
Resolutions pass.
Good. We're going to move to citizens' comments off agenda. Okay, so just a point of clarity. The way we ordered it was that there was going to be public comments off agenda items, and then hearings of citizens on the budget. If you would like to just specify which one you're making comments about, since they're together, I think that's the best way to go. No, John Rafferty?
Off agenda and budget. It's supposed to be off agenda first and then budget. We're doing it. We'll let you speak about what.
I'd like that. I'd just like to publicly comment how sad many people are about Ms. Grabstein's last day is Friday, correct? I had questioned the board and asked the board, since harassment seems to be normal everyday business in our board, if people would address Ms. Grabstein and ask her exactly why she was leaving.
Raftery, I don't think this is the forum for that. I'll be discussing that with Dr. Bender and with Dr. Martinez.
Okay. Okay. I do want to reiterate from the public standpoint, the turnover, which hurts our system. Several months ago, we mentioned there were 28 teachers that had left in the last year, something on that line. And we have brought in a new board to attempt to stabilize our Board of Education. We certainly have not seen any stabilization. We've seen the board be as transparent as they can with us, and that's good. I think they've been open with us. We've tried to be open with them. But right now, we are not in a good way. The board says they're concerned about our children and they listen to us, but I don't see the board listening to anything that we've said. It is more than obvious that the public, the teachers, the administration strongly supports Dr. Bender. How she sits here in these meetings talking about replacing her, I have no idea. She would be the #1 stabilizing factor in the district. People not only like her, people respect her. And I am begging the board to take that into account so that we can move on before we continue. It's the domino effect to just keep losing qualified people, qualified people. And my comments in regard to Ms. Grabstein are not so much Ms. Grabstein, they are for the board. Are you concerned about why people keep leaving? Is it acceptable for you to have people harassed? Is that acceptable to you? The answer is yes right now, because I haven't seen any action taken. None. It started on top with Dr. Bender and it just rolled down the hill. And there's been no change. And that's the change we need. It's going to be tough change. But saying yes is not the answer. Doing it is the answer. Because we have just lost too many good people. Simple as that.
Thank you, Mr. Rafferty. Mr. DeSantis?
Thank you. Is this on? Yes, it is. First thing, I want to mention something very quickly. I think that with the pandemic over, I guess officially over, as they're saying, I do think that, and it's not a criticism of the board members that have not been attending. It is really, I think that if the public comes out and the staff comes out, that board members should be attending meetings in person. If they got a health reason or something like that, I understand some things. Correct. And I do think everybody should be in person. But what I do hope is we're not having Zoom and executive session, because that does, with just our board members, but it does certainly leave a window for people to hear what's not supposed to be heard in executive session. So I hope in your changing of the policies that unless there's really a reason somebody can't attend the meeting. But if it's consistently remote, I think if the community comes here, I think board members should be present. On a better note, well, I don't know if it's a better note, Mrs. Grabstein. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You've proven to be one of the finer BDAs that we've had. And I think that is truly a loss that you're leaving. You may not have a lot of years experience, but you seem like you have 3 or 4 times what you have. You have really done a magnificent job and really been able to explain the finances from the business office point that everybody can understand whether they have a background or not. You'll be missed, and I just want to say again, thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, Mr. DeSantis. Just so you're aware, the policy committee, our policies and practices around remote meetings are on the radar for the policy committee. They had a very busy March, but that is on the agenda to be spoken about. Mr. Santos?
Okay, I was going to ask about the teacher's contract tonight, and I'm very glad to see that it's finally being settled. It's been very unfair to these employees to go this long without one. I got a call from a parent who asked me, because I come to all the meetings, who's in charge of the pre-K, because they can't get a hold of Barry Haynes. He doesn't show to meetings, and he doesn't respond to messages. And from what I hear, most days he's not even in. So I'd like to know who's in charge of the program. Again.
Mrs. DeSantis, thank you for asking that important question. So Mr. Egan and I have assumed most of the role, and I have to commend certain staff members that are also providing assistance to us. So it is being taken care of. Thank you.
So now you're wearing that hat too. Carrie, I know this is your last meeting, and I'm very sorry to see you go. And I hope something changes and we could get you back. So enjoy your new job, but we're after you. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Do we have anybody from the public to elevate? I'm sorry. Sorry, Ms. Blue, you're up next.
Janet Malul, 163 East Grand. At the last meeting, I couldn't attend. And I couldn't attend on Zoom nor in person. But I took the time one night when I was baking all things apple enchiladas all night for the cabaret night we held at the Civic Center. I put it on and I was listening to it. And a lot of it is the typical stuff. And then you got to talking about the budget. And honestly, I was like ready to jump through the computer. And I don't think it was really meant this way, but I was watching it not involved like I normally would be, but just as if I was watching a TV show. And what got me really riled, I guess is the word, was the fact that it seemed like some of you were ganging up on Dr. Bender over not having this, not having that. Why didn't we get this? Why didn't we get that? And something struck me at that point. And it didn't really matter who had prepared that document in this case. It was a matter of when we had Dr. Haynes here, when Barry Haynes took over the position, little by little, every other meeting, it seems we were adding 2, 3 people in to help him out. Well, somebody was taking this portion of the job, somebody was taking that portion of the job. But here, it seems like Dr. Bender not only is doing her job, but she's doing everybody else's job with it. And I think that's something that needed to be realized. And I think it still needs to be realized. We still have 6 weeks left to school. And over those 6 weeks, if you're in education, you know those are the crazy weeks. And maybe in some situations, we need somebody else to pick up some of those extra jobs that are getting shoved on her. And the other thing that struck me was that from what I interpreted from what was said, was that the finance committee hadn't really met. And I know when my husband was on the board, finance committee, especially at budget time, they met all the time. And so that to me, again, was something that stood out. Like you're complaining about you don't have this, that, or the other thing. You haven't even met. And so to me, there was like a disconnect. And that's how it came across, as I said, just watching it as if I was watching as an outsider, just watching in. And I don't think it was really intended that way, but that's what it looked like. If you go back and you look at it, you'll see what I'm saying. And if that's what the public that maybe tunes in occasionally to watch them after the fact, I just don't think it goes well, okay? And it may be just the way I happen to be watching it and interpreting it for the night, but those were the things that stood out to me. And as far as budget goes in general, there are always going to be parts that are going to flow one way or another from what I've seen over the years. But it's a good thing that it was accepted already by the county, because if the county doesn't accept it, then we really have a headache. So if they're feeling like it's reasonable, then hopefully, you know, it all kind of levels out in the end. And aside from that, Ms. Grabstein, I wish you luck in your new endeavors. And to those of you that are going to be sitting here for hours on Saturday, I hope you take into consideration some of what we've said. And I have to agree with, it was Christina said, you know, you set a timeline. We want somebody in place for July 1. But if it means you really have to rush the process or compress the process where you don't have time to think about it, then that to me is a little scary, okay? Because sometimes you look at something, I know from a lot of organizations I've been on where we've had to make major decisions, it takes a few days to mull it over before you start and then rediscuss it. And sometimes upon that second look, you realize not everything really is panning out in the way we thought it was, and maybe we need to revisit it a certain different way. So just some advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I just want to clarify a couple of points. Yeah, let me just clarify a couple of points. And I guess I'll go in reverse order because that's the way my memory works. But to the last point with the superintendent search, we're not going to settle. And so we're either going to find somebody very good who's a good fit and we're all going to be able to get behind this person, or we'll keep searching, or we'll turn over every stone. We're not going to settle because of the clock. And there is a B plan. So that's on one note. The other thing I'll say is that, you know, I too watched the last board meeting, and what you saw was not a hostile board. We didn't ask the administration how much they spent on toilet paper and pencils. There were no gotcha questions there. What you saw is exactly what you described is a confused board. And you're right, there wasn't a finance committee meeting, and it was a combination of a confused board and a board that's not going to just co-sign or rubber stamp things without truly understanding it. After having a finance committee meeting a week later, everybody was relieved, everybody got their questions answered, and in a couple of minutes, we're going to vote the same budget in without any modifications.
I think my point was the fact that it appeared like you were asking.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. To that point, the board has one employee. Right, so if the plumbing is bad in the building, we can't yell at the plumber. We can't Like, we can't ask questions. We're not even supposed to have much contact with board staff without it going through the superintendent. So the board has one employee, and that,
I understand that, but I didn't see that same appearance when it was Dr. Haynes sitting there.
I can't speak for the board before January.
Okay, but even from January. If Dr. Haynes there,
He had one board meeting in January, but I hear what you're saying. Yes, I hear what you're saying. Yes, yes.
nobody was throwing, they were just carte blanching, yes, hire this one, hire that one. That's my point.
I agree. Do we have anybody to elevate? I'm sorry, were you gonna add? I'm sorry.
I just want to be clear, Mr. Lowe, that the Finance Committee did attempt to meet several times. All members of all the trustees were available. We made ourselves available. Unfortunately, for personal reasons, members of the administrations were not available to meet with us to go over the budget. Just a matter of that's the way things happened. But we certainly were available, and we did try several times to meet. It was not something that was able to be done.
Mrs. Sands, you'd like to get up again?
Christina Ramos, 382 Teaneck Road. Hello?
Ms. Ramos, can you hold on one second, Ms. Ramos?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I just want to say that when, I understand that, Dr. Bender is, the chief of district. But the reality is she doesn't know everything. And when you have construction, you bring in the person that knows the construction. When you have the budget, you bring in the BA because the BA knows the budget. The superintendent doesn't know the budget. And it looked like she was being attacked. And it certainly did look like that. And I'm sure Ms. Grabstein answered all the questions. And the nonsense of you can't get a meeting together, that's baloney. This is budget time. And budget time, the boards have their committee meetings and there's multiple meetings over the budget. And then in the end, there's the public presentation. Not having your meetings and not meeting isn't the administration's fault.
In this case,
Those are board committee meetings.
If the committee meets without the administration, what will we discuss? Where would the answers come from? It would just be us meeting with no administrators.
You couldn't
I
find
just
a
wanna-
night, there were no nights since
Mr.
January
Santis,
where the administrators could meet with you.
Ms. Sands, can I just validate that from where you were sitting, it probably looked that way? I tried to give you the alternative narrative of what really happened, but I can see why it looked that way.
Okay.
Christina Ramos, good evening. Yeah.
Hello, I'm sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to add an additional comment to which I think is an important factor about Miss Butler leaving, is that she has a dance certificate that are far and few out there. And the fact that she also provides her services to all the schools in the district, it's something that shouldn't also be taken lightly. And there's one other thing that I was hoping that you guys, I don't know if you can do this, or if you have your emails available there, but I believe this actual resignation should have been rescinded. Can someone look into that before moving forward? Because I would hate to see this happening. And again, I strongly am very vocal asking you to please look into this, because I believe that Ms. Butler does not want to leave our district. Our children who have been with her program definitely doesn't want her to leave our district. She's been with us and she's done terrific things with our kids. And, a lot of kids my daughter, she can do anything. She does sports, she does dance, she does plays, but there's some kids who dance maybe is the only thing that is of their interest. We don't want to take something away again from children who this is maybe their only outlet to express themselves. And like I said, Miss Butler is amazing with them. She's had a great rapport with them, with the parents, even with the town, working with the Arts Association, as Janet mentioned. So I think this will be a terrible loss. And again, I'm 100%, 110% sure this is not of her choosing. So again, I think that there's an email somewhere out there sitting, asking for this to be, what's on the agenda to be rescinded.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. I assure
Thank
you
you.
that we are in contact with our legal counsel. We're not able
Okay.
to speak about personnel matters. Thank you for the kind words about Ms. Butler, but we're not
Okay.
able to respond, but we are in
That's
contact
fine.
with legal counsel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Do we have anybody else to elevate? I'd like to move to unfinished business. Trustee Gomes, can you move the budget?
Excuse me, Dr. Martinez, we have to have a motion to untable the resolution for when you tabled the budget. I checked with the attorney and you have to have a motion to untable it and then.
I make a motion to untable the resolution for the budget.
11.09 from the 4/26/23 meeting.
I second that.
Okay, Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
right, to take it off the table. Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Orth,
Yes.
and President Martinez.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes. To take it off the table, right? Now we have to vote on the unfinished business.
So it is untabled. Trustee Gomes, can you please move it?
I move resolution 1601.
I second it.
I would like to just make a comment on the budget. I just wanted to take a moment to point out that this budget is exactly the same budget that was presented at the last meeting and that we tabled on the last agenda. What's different tonight, and the reason I feel comfortable voting on this budget, can be attributed to the hard work and dedication of Ms. Carrie Grabstein and Ms. Nancy Loyacano. It was through their patience and determination that this board was able to get all of our questions answered in a clear and straightforward manner. Both personally and in my position on this board, I am extremely sorry that we will not have the opportunity to continue to work together. They continue to show their professionalism and integrity as evidenced by their most recent work on this budget and in talking this board off the ledge in terms of the same. We thank you so much for all of your hard work, especially on this matter.
I too would like to make a comment because I think I was probably one of the most vocal people about not having sufficient information about the budget when it was presented at our last meeting. I also appreciate Ms. Loyacano sending us information and responding to questions to the best of her ability in your absence, Ms. Grabstein. And I do appreciate the thoroughness that you've answered all of the questions that we had. In hindsight, to some of the public's recommendations, I'm not sure how we demand that the administration make themselves available, but that was the missing link that led to last meeting's concerns. The tax levy for our district is going up by the maximum amount that the school can raise it. The programs that are put together, the budget balances, and there is some ability for movement within the budget as numbers get finalized. Ms. Grabstein gave the group excellent advice for looking at how the transfers happen from this point forward and how expenditures are validated going forward to make sure that we do not overspend this budget because it is a very large number, $57 million. But again, thank you for the time to go through it and give us the comfort that we understood how it is put together and can feel confident voting on it.
Okay, thank you. You want to say?
Mrs. Grafstein and Mrs. Loikana, I have to just commend the amount of time and effort the two have provided to this district throughout your time here. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the start of it, but your colleague there, I was there when she was hired. And the two of you make a fine team. And I am sure that I speak on behalf of the community and the rest that you will both do well wherever it is that you may go.
Thank you, Dr. Bender. I just did also want to mention about the budget in a school district. 65 to 70% of the budget is made up of salaries and benefits. So it's not really that you're voting on a $57 million budget because the salaries are the salaries. There are certain, out of district placements are another 5 to 7%. You have transportation, which takes a big chunk. Capital projects this year, 7%. So when it comes down to it and all the maintenance that we have to do and the cleaning and the custodial, there's really not a lot of room for programs. It's basically, those are the basic things that you have to do to run a school district. So there's really not a lot of, complicated things to understand after you get through those initial mandatory expenses. So I hope the board has a better understanding of that now, and we'll take a vote on the budget.
Ms. Crabtree, now you're just showing off. That's exactly the type of statements and the type of observations that the board is looking for and was looking for. And right to the last minute, you are providing it to the public. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Gomes,
Yes.
Mr. Cathcart,
Yes.
Mr. Cooney,
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Phytros,
Yes.
Mrs. McNeil,
Yes.
Mrs. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Orth,
Yes.
and President Martinez.
Yes.
Yay, the budget passes.
On that note, I think I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night, everybody.